All right, hopefully you were able to come up with something that worked. If not, not a big deal as always. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. So again, this is our goal. This is what we want to achieve. So if you open up the before folder for this particular challenge and lesson, you will see that we do have the HTML here. I will explain it, but we don't have any CSS. I will paste in some rule sets and then we'll get started with the good stuff down here with the JavaScript. So the first thing that we have is a main element. The main element I've defined to wrap around absolutely everything. Then inside of there, we have two other elements. First, we have the button element, which is right here. And we see that we have an SVG element, which is for the little icon, and then a little span element for the button type. So this span element we're gonna have to gain access to change the inner text from rows to columns and columns to rows. All right, simple enough right there. We also have our cards. We are four cards, and we have it wrapped around a class called cards. All right, and so then inside each card is very simple. It's just a div class card. Inside of here, we have an image for the image at the top, and then a div class of content, which houses an H2 element and then a paragraph element. Very simple. We also have the 4 card graphics for you here as well in this folder. So let's go ahead and switch over. First, I'll go ahead and click on Watch SAS, and then we will also open that up with the live browser. And this is what we have by default without any CSS. So now what we're gonna do is switch over to our CSS, and I'm gonna start pasting in some rule sets. So the first one, we have our body of margin 0, height, 100 viewport height. Background is this beige color, and then the font family is Poppins. Poppins is being included up here in the HTML. So let's save that. This is what we have so far. Now let's also take our main element, which is the first element inside of the body element. And we're setting a max width of 1200 pixels, a margin of 5em on the top and bottom, and auto that will center it, and then a display flex with a flex direction of column and a gap of 2em units. So what that does is essentially we make this rows button and the cards element that wraps around these 4 cards into a flex direction of columns so that they're sitting on top of each other. Now, obviously, we still have some work to do here, so let's go back. Next one, we're gonna deal with that button because it is looking very ugly. And this is all I'm gonna be doing here with the button itself. So the button itself has 2 elements inside of it, the SVG element and also the span element. So we're doing display flex to put those into 2 columns. We're gonna align items center vertically to get that text centered vertically. The background set to none because we're using button elements and it makes it gray. Border none, font weight bold, align self end, which will push over to the right, which is how I designed it in Figma, and then cursor pointer. So we save this and we get something that's very close that matches up to the Figma design. So next up, we have our cards element. And so for our cards element, we have a few nested rule sets in here as well. And so I'm gonna paste this right there. So essentially the cards element, we're doing a display flex because it has our 4 card elements inside of it, which will by default put them into columns, and then a gap of 1em between them. Then each card specifically has a background that's white, padding 2em, border radius, nothing exciting there. Dealing with the image sizes, the H2, and the paragraph, we're just modifying margin and font sizes. So if we save this, we should have something that's very close to what we designed in Figma, which is right here. Spitting image, as they say. So all right. Now let's make this actually interactive. But first, before we do that, I'm jumping ahead, we need to add another rule set, which is gonna be our utility class that will toggle on and off in order to transition these from columns to rows. So to do that, we're gonna create a element, a class that we're not yet utilizing called sort. All right, so inside of sort, we're gonna say flex direction column. So this means that we're going to attach the sort element, the class, to our cards element right here in the HTML. So all we have to do is just add sort just to temporarily basically emulate what it's going to do when JavaScript adds that for us. So when we add this flex direction column, okay, these are now in rows like we want, but they're too big and ugly looking. If you recall, we have this. We need to scale down the size of those images as well. So to do that, we'll go ahead and go back to our CSS, and inside of here, we're going to say card. We're going to specify display flex and a gap of 2 em units. I'll do that image as well real quickly. So inside of card, we can take our image, a width of 200, not XP, but PX. There we go. So this is what we have now after making those 2 adjustments. So the card graphic itself, if you look at the HTML, card is right here. We see it has 2 elements. It has the shoe image and it has the content. So that's why we added a display flex to put those into 2 columns to keep it consistent with this design right here. All right, and now one other thing I'm gonna do is H2 margin 0. So if we save that, we should be good to go in terms of the design and the styling. There we are. Okay, so if I remove that, get rid of sort, save it, we're back to this right here. Now let's make it all work with JavaScript. So the first element that we're going to assign for is to register the GSAP plugin. All right, I don't want all this other stuff. This isn't even correct. Oh my God, it added a lot. What is going on? Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to paste in 5 different variables that we create because we need to gain access to the card container itself, which is cards. We need access to each individual card. We have our sort button. We have our button label, because remember we want to change that. That's a span outlet. And also the sort icon itself, because we want to rotate it. So now we can go ahead, and I also want to add one more property, which is going to be a Boolean value. We're going to say let sort rows equals false. All right, so this is basically, we're leaving us at false because we want this Boolean value to be something that will notify us in terms of when to change the button itself, the button text, and all that good stuff. So next up, we're going to go ahead and say sort btn add event listener, and it's going to be a click. And inside of here, remember, the first thing we need to do is to get access or to define the state. So we're going to say const state equals flip.getState. And I don't think we've done this yet, but you can actually specify multiple selectors to get state of multiple elements. And in this case, we want to get cards and we want to get the card state as well. All right. Inside of here, we simply say card container, which is defined in this top line right here. It's our cards element. We're going to say class list.toggle sort. Remember, we did this manually ourselves by adding sort right here. So our JavaScript, that's basically what we're doing with our JavaScript right there. Next up, then we simply say flip from our state, and then duration, something like 0.5, and ease, maybe a power 2 in out. Let's save this and see what happens. All right. Awesome. So this looks pretty good. Now, of course, this is not adjusting because we have to do that still. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we can say is just an if statement. So if sort rows is false, basically, we could say button label dot inner HTML equals columns. Next up, we also want to transform that icon as well. So we're going to say sort icon.style.transform equals rotate 90 degrees. Finally, we're going to say sort rows equals true. All right, so let's try this. There we go. You can see it changed. We click back, it does not change back, so we can do an else. And then this time, just to save us a little bit of typing, we'll just do this here. Inner HTML is rows going back to the original state. Then we rotate it back to 360, and then sort rows equals false. Very self-explanatory. So let's go ahead and give this a shot. rows goes to columns, and then columns goes back to rows. And there we go. Fun, fun stuff. All right, looking forward to the next chapter where we learn new stuff. All right, I'll see you soon.